there, it's Cassia Streb with Music for Your Inbox, and today I'm going to invite multimedia, mixed media artist Alicia Piller to join me and chat about the postcard that she created for this month's art pairing. I'll give you a little preview of what it looks like, and then I'm going to invite her to join.
Hi, I'm so happy that you could actually, chat with me. We've been emailing back and forth, and it's great to get a chance to connect. And I want to pick your brain about this piece in particular, but also the more I read about you as an artist, the more interested I am in hearing how you kind of went from painter to fashion to where you are now. Just sort of telling this long story of like where you're going to be next time too.
Yeah.
So I guess like to kind of boil it down a little bit, if you could maybe just explain a little bit about, or just tell me more about, I think I'm most interested in like how you went from fashion into the sculptural work because, and I don't even want to frame it as like you've arrived at your destination. It seems to me that you're following these paths of curiosity, and I want to know what led you from fashion to sculpture.
Thank you. First of all, good morning. This is my it's such a journey. I literally never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. I just had this vision of I'm going to be a painter, and all the fashion stuff that was happening in my life was craft world. And I really had this separation of, design world, contemporary art world. And I just, in undergrad, I studied anthropology and painting, and I didn't know what I was going to do with that, but those were my two interests. And I just knew I was like, I'm going to be a painter. Or I'm going to be a museum curator or something. And I had a painting teacher actually in undergrad that was like, you're going to go to a grad school for museum studies. Like she kind of shifted the way I thought about my trajectory. And, I can't, it's like I didn't go to grad school for museum studies because of her. And that kind of pushed me into, okay, what am I going to do as an adult? How am I going to make? And so I was living in New York, and I decided to start selling my jewelry. Actually was originally my hand painted clothing on the street in New York. And I did that for like a whole summer. It was ups and downs, but I was surviving, and then I finally got a real job. It was just this crazy winding path that was really pushing me into fashion. And I'm really grateful because that's how the sculptural world began for me, because I didn't really have an understanding of objects and, how to manipulate one thing and expand on that or take multiple materials. And so with the jewelry, I was able to, I was developing my own techniques with jewelry making and with leather and at the time it was a lot of suede. It was easier to manipulate, and I was getting it from thrift stores and cutting it up. So there was a lot of experimentation happening with the fashion, even though I was doing this thing that wasn't so contemporary. I was really doing a lot of contemporary, what I would say, processes, because I was like constantly playing with material. And so through all of that, I was like, these aren't big enough, the jewelry was too small. And I realized like it was time to grow, like expand. What am I interested in, and does this jewelry talk about anything, and it was just, I was dabbling in the design world, and that was wonderful, but I wasn't fulfilled. And so I felt, and that doesn't mean that you can't make contemporary jewelry that talks about things, but I just felt like I needed to push myself to the next level, and sculpture was that. And I never would have guessed, because I literally had taken a sculpture class at Rutgers, my undergrad, and I hated it. I was doing they were making us do things that were very basic, like carve this stone, cut this piece of wood. It was very I just couldn't get into it creatively. I felt stifled. And I had to find my way into the sculpture world of my own. I had to get there through the journey, through the process, through that winding road of life, literally.
Yeah. Well, because it sounds like there's a couple things that you're talking about that I like. You're moving from a 2D medium to like 3D, because you think about fashion, you're thinking about what the garment looks like from all angles, because we don't just look at people like how I'm looking at you right now, right? You see like the side and the back and how it moves and everything. And the other thing you're talking about is material, being like you're talking about vinyls and suedes and things that you can manipulate. I can imagine carving something out of a piece of wood is just like absolutely not part of your life's like journey, because it's a totally different thing. But it's odd to realize, oh, right, that's what sculpture kind of is, right? Or like marble, even worse, right? Like,
yeah. And so I really feel like, the unconventional was what was calling me. And my practice really is based on a lot of experimentation. I am constantly testing out and trying out new ways of working with something, or like patterns that I want to create. It's kind of like a explosion of ideas that I allow myself to tap into, because I have friends that are like, oh, I don't really want to do that thing because am I going to sell it or what? I'm just kind of like, let me do the experiment. let that take me to another place. And if I stifle that energy of like, oh, well, I don't even know what this is going to be, then that's just, it like cuts off all of the creative juices.
So are you more inspired by, like you see, because the materials you're using are often recycled, and I hear you saying like, oh, I'm going to thrift stores to source materials. I can understand that if you're living, I don't even want to say paycheck to paycheck, because when you're selling garments on the streets of New York, there's no paycheck. But I can understand that being just like an economical thing where you're like, I need to get a lot of this material cheaply. But now that you're thinking about your sculptures, are you looking at like a big pile of vinyl records in this case, or something else, and then being inspired by that? Or are you seeing the sculpture in your head and then trying to find the materials?
That's a great question. It's honestly a mixed bag. It's sometimes I have a clear idea and I will sketch it out and I'm like, oh, I gotta do this very specific thing. But a lot of times it's very organic, and I'm just kind of allowing maybe the object itself, whatever that is, to like inspire some new design. It's so, I know it sounds kind of like crazy. It's kind of like, well, sometimes you do this and sometimes you do that, but it really is that, because I usually have multiple things happening at once. And just to kind of like give you
love a tour. I'm so nosy. Show me everything.
I'm just organizing right now, but also creating,
oh my gosh.
These are all 3D printed parts that are all like trash.
Okay.
And we'll get back to your trash question.
It's okay. It's fine.
A few more crazy.
What are those?
So I have a friend, Becky and Colin are other amazing artists, and they're making they're making costumes out of these 3D printed parts. That's part of their practice, is wearing and performing. And so I get to have all their trash. It's literally like mistakes,
right?
As well as like, actually these kinds of shapes are the shapes that hold up the actual design. So they're not even like shapes that are important.
Right.
So I'm taking all of the sort of like unimportant shapes and making them important again. But what I love about them is that they are like plant-like forms. They're literally, they feel like plants.
Yeah, they look like plants, or like when you look at the human body, like the like blood vessels, or like
yeah. I love all of that. Mm-hmm. I just got a bunch of abalone from my father-in-law.
Oh wow!
That he dove for, apparently. I was like, whoa. And then I'm also working with like, these are, can you see that? Oh
yeah.
This is paint layers from a factory that I used to work in. Oh, here's a great one.
Oh yeah.
All the
Oh my gosh.
layers of paint from the factory floor.
Right.
And so I still have a connection with the factory that I used to work at, and they call me up when they have some trash. But okay, so to get back to the me choosing recycling versus new things, I am it started off as a need, but it's become a part of how I create things. I really start to see the beauty in the trash, or the beauty in like the things that are discarded. But it depends on what I'm making, because I do tend to, especially like in the past couple years, will purchase things maybe that are more specific, that are not trash, that I need this thing that I have this idea for, and I need to get whatever it is. A perfect example, I have an installation up at the Brick Gallery, and it's all dealing with Octavia Butler's archive, and almost like a spaceship cathedral, but you can sit. And so I bought office chairs to build over, and that, I'm not getting hand-me-down office chairs. I just purchased them, and
right.
dirty, and I wanted people to be able to sit in this thing. And so, I'm not opposed to buying new things, but I just feel like, for the planet, even, I mean, there's all these layers of desire, I want to repurpose something, but also it's trash that it's like we're ruining the planet. Like, and so maybe there's something in me where I feel like I'm doing my part, and not it's actually doing anything or not. I feel better. I rescued a bunch of materials from like the Bindex building, which is building here in LA, that's like lots of art galleries, but also lots of fast fashion small little factories in this building. And I was able to get like just a week's worth of trash from like one floor. And that was like, ooh. But then also, this is just one day, one like week, and the amount that they're throwing out. And that's just not the fast fashion industry, but like I've gotten huge chunks of foam or whatever that they were tossing out from the movie industry, or TV world. And it's mind-boggling.
I mean, the film and television industry is like known for that, right? Because first of all, they have the huge budget, so they also don't have any time, like, to source materials. So they're like, they have weeks to figure this all out. They have all this money, and then they buy everything and then just throw it all out. It's sort of tragic.
It blew. I mean, because right after graduate school, and I went to CalArts, I was doing, just different stuff. And I worked for, I did like a project for I'm forgetting what they call themselves. I don't know why I'm forgetting. Whatever, movie industry people, whatever, that world, fabrication stuff. And I got hired to make a giant mountain with other people that had to be like crystals for some sort of like kids game show or something. Anyway, it was just so much stress, so much materials used for them to like the show. I don't even think it aired, or maybe it aired once, or like it didn't go anywhere basically. So they had to scrap every single thing. And working in that world made me really be like, oh, I can't work. I can't do this, because it was hard. It was like, all my hard work. We're just tossing it. It was just like, it hurt.
Yeah.
Like materials wise, it hurt. And then I literally, when I was done with that job, I went back and they let me go through their dumpster, and it was a massive dumpster of just like stuff. And that was great.
Right.
But I can't rescue everything.
No, nor should you. I mean, yeah, you have to manage your bandwidth, your capacity to do all of this stuff. Yeah, well, because I was thinking about how also like the fashion industry is, like you were mentioning, fast fashion, and a lot of people are starting to critique like the consumer's level of consuming and the demand for it and the demand for the low prices, and then it's just sort of being this snake eating its tail. So I can see why you're also interested in kind of moving into the fine art world. I was okay, so for this project, we asked you to pick a piece of yours that would pair with Ashton Phillips's work, which is a sound film that we shot in downtown LA, that he had his ensemble, the Pure Filth Society, but then also had like 10,000 mealworms and beetles eating away at the styrofoam.
Me, I was like, yeah.
It was, and then, but also we were asking you kind of this crazy task of, everything you're talking about as you're talking, I'm thinking big and huge and 3-dimensional. And we were like, hi, we make postcards. So we had to get you to kind of scale your vision to fit sort of the container that we have. So anyhow, you gave us a couple of options and we all like loved this particular broken record. Oh, sorry, the glare is not great on it's great in person when you're holding the glossy finish. But it says it's got like vinyl, recycled leather, sycamore seeds, rubber, latex, balloons, and paper. Could you talk a little bit about the like dissecting 7 sycamore seeds? Because that part is like so poetic to say and stuff, but I'm kind of curious to know more about what that entailed.
I wish I had a seed with me because I always have some nature thing around, but let's just start there. I love nature. As much as I'm into, plastics and other crazy materials, it all boils down to like nature is the most beautiful artist, and so I am constantly photographing nature, walking in nature, collecting things. So when I was at Cal Arts for grad school, I was encountering, every time I'd do my walks, I'd encounter this sycamore seed. It was just everywhere. And when you see them, people step on them and all the seeds just sort of like disperse. And what I was fascinated by was the shape. The shape looked like an earth form. I mean, it's just a round sphere, but it's all made up of seeds. Like the seeds create the whole thing and it's perfect. Yeah. And like, it was just like the form of it blew my mind and I fell in love with it. And so I'm crazy and I'm a workaholic. So I was like, let's dissect, first it was just one and it led to 7 things. But what I was doing was laying each seed out, counting each seed, like how many seeds are in one ball. Sometimes it would be like over 1,000, but I was like, well, like how, just the
oh my God,
and I was just being so, this is amazing. And so I laid them all out, count them all, cut them all out. And then I have a process with my practice where I'm ritually wrapping every single object, no matter how big or small it is. I'm wrapping it in either a vinyl or fabric or whatever. That ritual aspect of my practice is just how I work. But so I started to separate them all and then reconfigure those forms, those little separated seeds into a new form. And that really was a process of just me experimenting and letting the experiment lead to the meaning, because sometimes I just need to do a thing. Mm-hmm. So in the process of doing that, I was like, it was really drawing me to think about what does it mean to go into a country like America and literally change the whole environment, like literally rip away what was there and make something new for better, for worse. And could this reconfiguration be beautiful? Does it look, and a lot of them looked like a little scary, and I was really allowing that process of rebuilding these forms to take me to the next meeting or whatever. But really it was boiling down to me looking at them as earth forms being dissected and reconfigured. And it just tied into communities and peoples and, colonialism at the heart. And so that led to this whole series of me working with these 7 seeds. I stopped at 7, and it has no necessarily a meaning or behind 7, but it just like I got tired of doing it after that, and I needed to do something else. But the piece that I chose, Reconfiguration 4, it was one of I had, like I said, 7, so it was the design.
Right.
And
I'm holding it the right way, by the way. I'm not messing this up. Okay, great.
So I love it. And this piece it was one of my favorite of the series. Mm-hmm. Something about the composition. There was a beauty. Like I like sort of being a part of like a kind of two-sided coin where it's like it's a little beautiful, but it's also a little gross. There's like, and so I really was excited to think of something that tied into Ashton's performance piece. The bug element is so on brand for me because again, nature is a part of my work and just love. And I'm also have tons of bugs collected in resin or whatever. I'm very interested in the actual like beauty of form, and bugs are right on, right up. They're perfect. And they're so beautiful, but also a little gross, and that's also why I love it.
Yeah, well, because I was thinking, like, Ashton's work, one of the things I love about his work is it makes me really confront the feeling, like, of disgust, kind of, because he's got all these plant materials that are composting right in front of your eyes, and there's flies coming out of them, and there's the mealworms that are turning into beetles, and because something that because I have kids, and when I was, like, learning about babies and stuff, I learned that, like, disgust is learned. It's not inherent. Like, we don't, as babies, we're not disgusted by anything, as is evidenced by like how babies move through the world. And so that's like something that we teach them. And that's why, of course, different cultures experience disgust at different things, or different like foods or different parts of nature, or don't do this with your hands or do this with your feet or whatever the cultural like norms are asking of people. And so I love that you're kind of like saying like, well, is this disgusting? And it seems like you're riding the edge for your own self, where you're like, well, maybe for me this isn't. Because that's something that fascinates me about Ashton's work as well, is that it kind of makes me really look at myself and be like, well, why are you disgusted by this?
Exactly. And I even like, in my own life, like I'm the person that's like, oh, a spider, cool. And then my husband's like, oh my God, get it away from me, So there's like, I like that the performance itself sort of brings everybody to the same level. And instead of sort of just like observing this other world, there's this like connection happening of like literal sort of like just, embracing and sort of fusing the human form and sound into this other sphere that we think is separate, but it's not.
No, you're right. And actually, that was a big thing for Ashton when we were talking about how to film like the project, because Jen and I actually did the filming, and we like edited and colored the video, and so we were really paying attention because we were asking about, like, what do the performers want to see on camera or not? And he was actually saying, well, I would like to speak for the silent members of the ensemble, these bugs. And he said he really wanted it to be like bug's eye view or bug centric. And so that we would see, so as you're saying, like, I'm glad that came across, that it was integrated, that it's not a separate world, that these are people, like not people, these are creatures within his world and our world. And so we did a lot of like very close ups of just these mealworms eating the styrofoam and exploring and walking around. And I mean, it gets close, right? It gets like right up in there.
I know that you filmed it, which amazing. Okay, there was one moment where you like zoomed into the plants.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, like that. That like was this moment away from the humans that it was like a reprieve that I felt like, okay, I was in there with the bugs. But I want to know, like, when you were filming, do you feel like your sort of opinions about the bugs changed? I mean, maybe you loved them before, but like as you're filming, I just want to know, was your relationship with the actual subjects, like, were you then just like, oh, they're not disgusting anymore, they're just my subjects? Like, how did you feel?
Yeah, it does change. And that's what I like about Ashton's work, is that he's giving you enough time to sit with this material to actually change your opinion. And yes, you do look at it, because when you're filming something, right, it's just like when you're looking at art, no longer is it all I'm like, because you're talking like ecstatically about dumpster diving. Like, I mean, but like, it's beautiful, right? And I think that it's a similar thing where, like, yeah, these aren't, like, when we were editing the film, we're like, ooh, we got to get that shot, because look, that little guy goes up here and then he's down there, and then like, oh, but we have to finish his journey. Like, we can't cut away, even though we've been here for a long time, because we need to know, like, where does this hero end up? And it definitely does, like, yeah, change your opinion of it, and just being in the space in Automata, because Ashton had brought all these things in and he was there for a week. And so there's these tanks, and I was in the space a few times when other folks had gone out for lunch. And so it's silent because I'm not talking to myself, in that moment. And, you can just hear like you just hear them all busy at work. Like, they're just doing their thing.
Yeah.
And sort of scratching at all the material and like walking over each other. And we did a few things where we just recorded the audio in a few of the tanks, just to see what that was, because we had all the microphones and everything there. And, so it does shift your perspective. And I think I'm
sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just feel like and your work is doing the same thing, where, like, because when Ashton introduced me to your stuff, I was looking online and looking at Instagram and things. And of course, in sculpture, you tend to see the shape of things first, right? Like the form. And so I was looking at those and like, oh yeah, this is great. Wonderful. But then I'm like, wait a minute, what is this made of? And really spending like more time contemplating all of that. And so it allows you like a longer time to linger. And it's not just about being like more detail. It's, I just find, I find it like I stare at those pieces a lot. Like, in fact, you posted some stuff of like, I think you made your wedding dress or something wild. Like, congrats.
Thank you.
And I was actually showing my kids, because I was like, look, this woman did this, like, with her hands. And you can follow like each curl, and then there's these crystals in it, and like, anyhow, I like that it's I feel like the visual art is doing the same thing as Ashton's pieces, even though you're coming at it from different angles.
As you're talking about it, like, and describing, the bug world, and you sort of being silent in there, it made me just go back to childhood. Like, it made me think about, as a kid, me lifting up a rock and looking at a worm world, or sitting in the front yard and looking at these mounds of ants, and me putting like a fruit roll up in their little thing and watching them devour it. Like, just these experiments that you did as a kid outside, potential, and so for me, that was a lot of my childhood, was sort of being silent and watching and observing. And there's just something almost like when I think of it in that way, and I think about the video, I think about there's something in there that's like almost childlike, where we get to sort of we're not on a higher, again, it's like, as a kid, you're a kid, you're not this adult that's in charge. It's like it's a level playing field of just like, I don't even know, I'm just thinking of it now, but like, just it's fascinating to me, the eyes of a child, and then the eyes of a adult, like, how do we then form these things about whether or not it's gross? So it just, there was a beauty to the video that, and the performance itself, that was just like allows you to sort of like let go of that sort of hierarchy that I just was like, yeah, like I love it.
Well, and it seems like in your own work, you've managed to like retain the curiosity of a kid.
Yeah.
With the skills of an adult to execute it. Cause the reason I was asking about, you know, the materials first or the concept is because like in my own house, you know, with all these kids running around, you see them like happen upon a situation, right? And then all of a sudden something comes out of that, you know, where they're like, I'll bring home, like I use a paper cutter to cut concert programs, and I'll just have like a bunch of pieces of paper that are 2 inches wide and whatever. And they'll like, oh, well, this is going to be, and it's like all of a sudden something completely you never would have thought of, right? And it's only because the paper is like smaller than regular paper. And of course you can cut paper to any size you want. But I think that you seem to be working in that way, except that the execution is like so sophisticated because you're not a child, obviously, like with a stapler and a Scotch tape, you know, you're spending a lot of time on this. So in terms of like what you're up to next, I'm just kind of curious if I can be nosy, like what's sort of your next big thing that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'll be teaching this coming semester at UCLA and Irvine, which I'm teaching sculpture, which is super fun and great. But project-wise, I showed you some of the little collections that are happening, and I have something brewing. I'm working on a solo show for 2026, so that's here. But it could have been earlier. I was given the choice, like, do you want to do it in May or do you want to do it in 2026? And I chose that because I like I said, I'm a workaholic. I like to really put my energy into a thing, you know, and I can work really fast. But I don't know, there was something calling me to just, like, I really wanted to almost slow down a little. And, which is, I don't know, I have it's hard to even explain because I'm in the process of starting this new project. So I'm in this mode of, like I said, just spreading everything out. It's a little bit scary. Like, I get a little bit like, oh, what's going to happen? And so I'm in that mode right now. But I know that I want this new work to be a little more elaborate. I'm saying that when I know the work already is elaborate.
Okay, I was like, good luck, because I don't know how to do that.
I'm like, wait, no, if that makes sense.
You're talking about like conceptually, not like human hours.
Above, kind of. Like, I because, and I should just specify, like, I'm working with, right now, the first 2 little pieces that I started from this whole series, which I said, it's going to grow. I'm looking at my great grandmother on my maternal side. And my maternal side's Black. My paternal side is Jewish, white. And so on the maternal side, I have been thinking about, like, in the past couple of years, just, you know, the probability of existence and the fact that, you know, through slavery, like, I'm still here. I alive through these sort of horrible histories. So I'm kind of toying with the concept of, like, lost in space. So there's elements from, like, astronomy books that are from, like, the 80s that I'm, like, playing with, and then all of the 3D printed parts, but then also mixing in these images of individuals who I feel are kind of, like, quote unquote lost in space. And so, just super quick, one of the people besides my great grandmother, is Washington Carver. And so right now I have a piece at CAM, at the California African American Museum, that's part of the Washington Carver PS show. And so that, like, walking through the show and reading, because it's like a very much like a museum show where it's like, this is the history of him. Growing up, it was like he was reduced to peanuts, literally. That my mom said that to me, and I was like, yeah, he really was, like, because that's all we knew. This show, like, taught me. I was like, he built a car with Henry Ford out of soybeans and natural materials. They built a car and it ran on natural materials. And like, nobody, I didn't know that. Nobody, what? And that was just one thing that he did. Like, but a whole car, he built a sculpture out of plants. And he was friends with Gandhi, and he was giving Gandhi like dietary suggestions because he was fasting, like all this stuff. And I'm like, what? So anyway, I've been really like on a like, ooh, he's so cool. And he was also into plants and hybrid and then creating new forms. He was experimenting. So anyway, he's one of my people. I have like a little group of people that I'm like, I love you, and I'm gonna make these little / huge, maybe
probably huge shrines. Everything you've ever done.
I know, they're gonna get big. I'm excited.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about like I mean, if it helps you feel better, kids at school are now actually learning about that. So hopefully,
okay,
hopefully that makes you feel better.
It just baffled me. I was, why do I?
Of course.
This? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at any, not to say the problem is fixed. I'm just saying that.
No,
continue on your path. But I'm saying that if one thing could make you feel a bit better, kids are learning about that now. But it sounds like you're also in the process of like digging and unearthing, and like you're using. It's not even just physical materials, but also just kind of conceptual materials.
Exactly, and that's why I wanted to give myself time. Also because, like, you know, what I'm doing, it's a lot of work. It's not like, oh, I'm putting a shape on this shape. It's like, I am touching everything. I am really in it. It's an organism that I am growing. That's how I think of them. And so knowing that, like, I'm going to be teaching and like maybe traveling or whatever, I want to really give myself a chance to the right amount of time to like really flesh out the forms, but the content, like what, you know, I know what it's about, but what is it really about, you know?
Right. Yeah. I'm curious what you're going to, like, is this your first time teaching a sculpture class? Because you just said that you took one and you hated it. So I'm curious, like, how have you adapted?
Good question. Yeah, that's great. No, I was teaching at Cal Arts and Irvine. And so I've been doing some teaching, but for me, I really enjoy doing it from my angle. And that is not making people make a wooden box.
Unless they want
to. Exactly. And so I'm really about the unconventional materials. So I try to, I'm introducing the students to, you know, just different ways of thinking about sculpture and drawing. Like, how does that tie in? And walking in nature and collecting. How does that tie? So I'm really pulling the classes based on my practice. And I separate it out into like nature and monuments and, you know, whatever. And, I love to give a little bit of like, you know, some gossip in there a little bit, like not gossip, but just like, what are the failures of public art or, you know?
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so I make it fun in a way that's for me. Like would I want to sit in this class and do I want to hear and learn about or create blah, 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 you know, like I want, it to be from my point of view. And that means introducing materials that are maybe not marble. Maybe it's just wire. Maybe it's,
right.
Right. Something you have in your house, So I try to, because I want students to enter into the sculptural realm in a way that feels accessible and not like it's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, then it sounds like you are achieving. At least you wouldn't scare your own self away. Your own 20-year-old you would not be afraid of your class.
Yeah. I would have had fun.
Well, I don't want to take up more of your time. I have one tiny stupid thing to ask you. Have you done anything with eucalyptus seeds?
Ooh, yes, but not in a way where it's like, ooh, the eucalyptus seed is so important.
Okay.
Or just like you're in stuff.
Yeah, because I just a friend of mine makes paper and was asked, because I live in an area full of eucalyptus trees and she lives in Canada, and she was like, "Can you mail?" I was like, "I don't know if I can mail plant material across the border," but she was like asking me to collect them because they're actually like you're talking about, like you walk by and you happen upon, and they have, eucalyptus trees are constantly throwing stuff on the ground.
Yes.
So you have to get like the right stuff at the right month. And, it's fascinating because they're kind of this invasive species here. So it's like, even though it's beautiful and it's nature, it's this giant nature in the wrong place. And they're like
there's a lot
crashing into people's houses because there's way too much rain right now because of climate change. And anyhow, not that I'm trying to give you a new idea. I was just more curious about the because that seed to me was like, holy cow, like what is happening? Because she was saying like, oh, have you seen these? And sent me a Google image of it. And I was like, wait, what?
I love it. I'm like all of that kind of thing. Like I get into these modes of like, ooh, I'm really into this thing. Like for a while it was, okay, look this up, but crinoid fossils. Have you heard? Okay. It's it basically, it looks like a flower with a stem, but it's an animal, and they still exist. I shouldn't say just fossils, but like the fossils that are millions of years old, you can find like the stem looks like little stars, little tiny stars. Oh, they're layered. So it just looks like a stick as a stem, but really it's just little star shapes. Anyway, so I was like collecting those and making jewelry. Oh my God. Like you just look it up. It's so
okay. I will. No, thanks for the tip. We keep talking about Ashton's film and your piece in the past tense, but they're actually like right now on our Music for Your Inbox little project on our website. You can, I will mail you a postcard. I mailed you some. I'll mail them to anyone who needs one. They just sign up on our website through the end of the month. Alicia, thank you so much for your time and for your energy. I feel like rejuvenated just having talked to you.
Make my day. Stop it.
But yeah, thank you so much. And, hopefully, see you around the arts community. And, we're going to keep like spying on you from our internet portal. And next time you're up to something, we're going to see if we can snag you for a new project.
I love it. Yeah. Keep me in mind and keep the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And make something out the eucalyptus seeds.
I will. Yeah. No, they're wild. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Take good care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.